Welcome to episode 61 of the Total Hockey Training Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Scahan. And before I introduce my next guest, I just want to remind everybody, hey, I just posted phase four to the community on school. And we're going to be going into phase five here pretty soon. Actually, I shouldn't say phase five. Phase one of the preseason, we'll be rolling into that on Train Heroic. So if you're a player and you're watching this and you need to have a program designed by me, let me know. And also, hey guys, like I do this, I love doing this, and you're gonna love today's guest. And if you could like the show, share it, whatever you gotta do, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll roll into my next guest. My next guest is Todd Marchant. Todd played 17 seasons in the NHL with the New York Rangers, Columbus Blue Jackets, the Edmonton Oilers, and of course the Anaheim Ducks. 1,195 NHL games, and I'm pretty sure this is separate, but 95 playoff games. That's a lot. 95 playoff games. Good guy, one of my favorites, not only as a Duck, but as a person, and does a great job with the San Jose Sharks as the director of player development. Todd, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's great to see you. I know I saw you a couple weeks ago, but I said I got to have you on the show. So tell everyone about, where's Todd Marchant from and what was it like growing up and what's your hockey background and what other sports did you play?
I was born in Buffalo, New York. My mom and dad still live there. I have two brothers, an older brother, Scott, who's a lawyer in Buffalo, and a younger brother, Terry, who was drafted by the Edmonton Oilers, played maybe 10 years of minor pro hockey, and he lives in Katy, Texas. I grew up just playing locally in Buffalo. We lived in a town called Williamsville, and the local team was called the Amherst Knights. So I grew up playing from them from the age of 8 all the way until I was a senior in high school. Played AAA hockey for them and really enjoyed it. I mean, it was like the landscape then obviously is a lot different than it is today.
Hmm.
It was like you just kind of were happy just to make the team the next year. I've experienced a lot of these things with my own kids. I have four children, ages two girls, two boys, 27, 25, almost 24, and 16.
Wow.
So I've gone through it with them as a parent. I've gone through it them as a coach. It's an interesting landscape, but growing up in Buffalo, played high school golf, high school baseball, played soccer. I think I played a little bit of Little League football, but I played all the sports. I mean, it was one of those things where, again, years ago when hockey season was over, your hockey bag went into the corner of the basement and you picked
Hmm.
up something else and you went out and played that for the summertime. And I really feel as though that it helped me a lot in my my career because I developed different skills. I developed different things that I would not probably have been able to master had I just played hockey.
Hmm.
And the other part of it is that I just loved looking. I looked forward so much in September to put my hockey gear back on. It was like
Hmm.
I missed it and I wanted to put it back on. It was refreshing, and that's why I think I love the game so much. I really it's been a part of my life since I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
And now being 52, it's been great. I really do, and it will always be a part of my life. It'll always be a part of my family's life, and we're just happy to be a part of it.
That's awesome. So what were some of the things that you would do when you'd put the hockey bag away after the season?
Yeah, so baseball was a big thing for us. That was the next sport you would play coming out of hockey season, early spring. You'd also play late summer or midsummer. You'd play some soccer, and then obviously once September came along, you'd play hockey again. But I loved golf. That was one of my favorite things in high school was playing the golf team. I enjoyed playing all the local courses in the Buffalo area. We got to play all the private courses, which was great. So it really was a way to, kind of do something different. Again, golf is another mentality. It's not, you know, um, it's more mental than it is. I mean, it is physical too, but there's a lot of mental part of the game, that you have to develop, and that helps you with the game of hockey as well.
So at what point while you were playing AAA hockey did you understand, or do you have an intuition that you could go further along than that?
My parents get asked that question a lot. And when I was 16, I got invited to the U.S. Select 16 camp out in Colorado Springs. So it was the best, I don't know, maybe it was probably 40,
Oh,
16
wow.
year old. Yeah, there wasn't a lot. I had to get on a plane by myself and carry my skates with me and go all the way out to Colorado Springs. And we trained for a week. And they picked a team that went to play in, it was called the Coupe de Quebec, the Quebec Cup. And
Hmm.
all the other, countries sent their best players at 16. And we got to play in this tournament. It was great. Then the next year, since I had made the team the year before, I got invited back to the 17 camp. I thought I had a better camp than I did as a 16-year-old. And they picked a team that was going to play Team Canada in like a 3-game series. And I didn't make the team.
Hmm.
I got cut, and I was shocked because I thought, geez, I really thought I played better than I did the year before. And so the coach of the team at the time was Red Gendron, who was a longtime coach at the University of Maine.
Hmm.
And he said, if anybody would like to, talk about your camp, you can come see us. Well, I was out the door first, and I went right into his room, and I said, I just got to ask. I said, what did I do wrong? He said, you didn't do anything wrong. I said, well, so he showed me this piece of paper, and there was 5 names listed on it. It was Pat Peake, Brian Ralston, Chris and Peter Ferraro, and myself. And I said, well, what is this? He says, you're one of the top 5 ranked forwards in the country. Exactly. And I looked at him and I said, I don't understand. He said, Todd, we're playing Team Canada and we just feel like we need bigger players. We
Hmm.
can't go with small guys. And Chris and Peter were on the smaller side as well. He goes, I want to go with a bigger team. And I tell you what, I've seen, I've spoken to Jet Red about this after. He said it was one of the biggest mistakes he ever made in his coaching career. And yet I thanked him. I thanked him for that experience because it fueled me. It fired me to want to prove him wrong in every possible way. And I always would go back and think about that experience and that flight home from Colorado Springs, knowing that I got cut. And it took me a while to get over it, but then once I did, it was business as usual for me to get back to playing the game that I can. And I had to prove people wrong all the time. I mean, I'm only about I'm 5'10" on a good day, and I played at about 175. And I had to, back when, in the mid 90s, when you play early 90s, it was all rough, tough, hooking, holdings, grabbing. So you had to do things a little bit more special being a smaller player to be able to be successful. And all through that process, I just kept, so to answer your question, I don't really know if I knew even until I was probably a sophomore in college. I went to Clarkson,
Hmm.
for 2 years, played in the World Juniors for Team USA. And then I got invited by Tim Taylor to go to a U.S. National Festival in Campbellton, New Brunswick. And that's where it started to snowball a little bit because that's when
Hmm.
the tryouts that summer were for the Olympic team, the night for the 94 Olympic team. And I got invited to the first one. I made it through that one, got invited to the second one, made it through that one, and got invited to the third one. And I finally made the final 25-man roster that was going to travel all over the world and play. And from that moment on, that was kind of like, okay, maybe this is a chance. Maybe I have a chance to play this at pro, like
Hmm.
maybe American
Hmm.
Hockey League or something, not necessarily the National Hockey League. So I think that was kind of that moment when I made that team that it really my career kind of went in a different trajectory.
That's a great story. I appreciate you sharing that. That's incredible. I don't, we've talked a lot. I never heard you tell that story. And that's pretty amazing. So when you looked at like the NHL at that time, there weren't that many guys 5'10" or under in the NHL. I mean, maybe you could say Theo Fleury or um, at the top of my head, I really can't think of
Like
anyone.
Cliff Ronning was in the NHL,
Yeah,
but there was maybe one on a team, if that.
yeah. So
You
that's a
know,
big hill to climb. And it's amazing that you were able to do that. But I remember, I'll never forget this story. I think I've shared it with you before. I was helping, it's pretty cool actually back then. I was helping Brian Murray move his condo in, I was just a grunt helping move couches. And it was me, Brian Murray, rest in peace, Chuck Fletcher, Mike Babcock, and Greg Carville. And I remember we were sitting around having beers, and this is when like Babs was the coach for the Ducks at the time, and he's like, "I need you to go get Todd Marchant." And I didn't know who you were. I know you're the little guy in Columbus that could buzz around. That's all I knew you as. But like that was Babs kind of seeing like getting to, the league was going to get faster, right? Because you could skate fast and work hard. And I just remember that. And we'll get into a couple years later, you were on the Ducks. But so talk about, you went to the Rangers first, correct? And you went after your sophomore year, you signed?
Yes, yeah. So after the Olympics were over, I had signed a contract with the Rangers, and looking at the Rangers, that's the year that they went on to win the cup.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at this team and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way that, like, I'm not knocking Mark Messier or Sergei Nemchinov, any of these. I'm not knocking these guys out of their jobs. So
Mm-hmm.
I figured it was just going to be in the American League until I got an opportunity. And so I went to the American League right away. I played 8 games and I got called up. And I walked into Mike Keenan's office and had his glasses like this. He was reading the newspaper. And I said, "Hey, coach," I said, "just it's Todd Marchant. I just want to say hello." And he goes like this. He goes, "Where's the rest of you? Get out of my office." And I just,
Seriously.
yeah, it was one of
Yeah.
those. And Mike was tough on me. And uh,
Yeah.
I think back to like Eddie Olchuk and Adam Graves. These guys were awesome with me.
Yeah.
Stevie Larmer, like they're just like, "Don't worry about it, kid." He's like, he treats all the young guys that way. He wants to get into your kid, in your head and see how you handle it. And so I was up there for probably like a couple weeks, and I got into a game against Chicago, the Blackhawks at MSG, my first game, and we're down 3-0 after the first period, I think it was, and he comes in the locker room between periods, and he's giving everybody, a hard time, and he looks at me, he's like, "What have you done?" And I don't think I got off the bench. I mean, I maybe got 1 or 2 shifts. I was playing with Mike Hartman and Joey Kosar on the fourth line. And by the third period, I was playing on the line with Mike Gartner and Tony Amonte.
Hmm.
And sure enough, 2 days later, we all got traded. It was like these guys, type of guys got traded. They bring in Brian Noonan, Stefan Matteau, those type of Craig McTavish, who I got traded for.
Mm-hmm.
Big, strong veteran guys that Mike wanted and, worked for him because they ended up winning the cup. But for me, it was great because I got to go to Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to start my career with a young team built on speed. You
Mm-hmm.
know? And it was funny because the first time I met Glenn Sather, he said the same thing to me. He says, "Where's the rest of you?" I said, I've already heard that one." So, but yeah, no, it was probably the best thing for my career was to go to Edmonton. We were a bunch of young kids, just kind of all growing up together and learn our way through the league. And we had some great playoff series with the Dallas Stars.
Yeah.
So I played 10 years in Edmonton. And then I signed a free agent contract with the Blue Jackets. And I was there all of about a season and a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got
Yeah.
traded to Anaheim.
Well, listen, who are some of those young guys? Obviously, your boss, Mike Greer, Billy G, Dougie Waite, right? Michael Pekka, was he?
No, he was there after. He was there in
Okay.
'05. But like go back like Dave Oliver, um, Tyler Wright, Dean McCammond, Jason Arnott.
Yeah.
On the back end, I'm trying to think who we had. We had Tommy Salo in net. Obviously, we had Curtis Joseph the years that we won against Dallas. But we were just I go back sometimes and I look at the roster of the 1997 Edmonton Oilers and I look at the roster of the 1997 Dallas Stars. We had no business being in a playoff series against this team. We just barely got in and we knocked them off in 7 games because we were just a bunch of young kids that we had a game plan. Ron Lowe was our head coach. Our game plan was to get 100 hits. That was it.
Yeah.
We were going to get 100 hits. We were just going to pound them to every single chance we could. And we were going to try and stretch out the series and see if we could try and get it to as long as we could. And sure enough, we got it to a seventh game and we were able to win in overtime. So again, just a bunch of young kids that, just went out and played hard.
And how did they win game seven?
Yeah, I think Dougie Wade gave me a nice pass, I think it was. But like it was just, I mean, we ended up beating the Colorado Avalanche the next year in the first round in 7 games. We had no business beating that team with, they had Sakic, Forsberg, Kamensky, Foote, Patrick Waugh. I
Hmm.
mean, it was a stacked team.
Hmm.
We were able to do it again the next year against Colorado. So like, it was a great time. We just, like I said, we were all about, we had a few veteran guys. Kelly Buckberger was our most veteran guy. But we're a bunch of kids that just wanted to play hockey and we kind of grew up together. And I mean, here I am lucky enough that I get to work with two of those guys that I played with back then.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. So can you talk about, I'll just paint the picture. So I remember the Ducks, this was 05, 06, and this was we signed Scott Niedermayer that summer, which was huge. And let's face it, I think after the lockout, I think Robbie was the only player in the NHL that got a raise. So Scotty would come. But and then we made the trade for Fedorov and got Tyler Wright and Boschman. We can get into that a little bit. But okay, so if I'm not mistaken, you or your agent said no to a trade or something. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is all public knowledge, by the way.
Yeah, no, no,
That, you know,
I talk about it all the time. Doug McLean brings it up every single trade deadline because he's so proud of it because he circumvented my contract and didn't get in trouble for it. Well, I shouldn't say that. He didn't circumvent the contract. He found a loophole in the contract. I got a phone call. I played one season, and the next year was the 04-05 season. We didn't play at all.
right.
And the 05-06 season was November. The team wasn't playing well. He calls me. He says, I need you to waive your no trade. And I said, well, okay. Why? He goes, well, I've got a chance to upgrade our team. I've got to move money out. And you're one of the guys that they want. I said, okay. I said, where am I going? He goes, I can't tell you.
Mm,
So, well, wait a minute. That doesn't make
hmm.
any sense to me. I go, look at. I said, I go, you can't tell me. He goes, yeah, the team that I'm making the deal with knows that you have a no trade and will not let me tell them because they don't want you to say no to them. I'm like, okay, well then I'm gonna say no.
Yeah.
He goes, all right, well, listen, I'm gonna still try and do the deal without you and try and find money somewhere else. So anyway, a couple days go by. All of a sudden, they make the trade for Fedorov, and it includes Francois Beauchemin, Tyler Wright. And sure enough, a day later, I'm on my way to the rink, and he says, "Where are you, Doug McLean?" I said, "Well, I'm on my way to the rink." And he goes, "What are you doing that for?" I said, "Well, I'm coming in for practice." I said, "You made the trade." He goes, "Well, I still got to move your money." And I said, "Well, what?" He goes, "I'm putting you on waivers today." I said, "Okay."
Hmm.
So what should I do? He goes, "Well, just turn around and go home." I said, "Well, can I just go down? Obviously, this is over. Can I
Hmm.
just go down and say goodbye to the trainers?" He's like, "Yeah." So I get down to the rink. They have to meet me out in the back by the garbage, out the back
Oh,
door. Timmy
brutal.
Leroy, Jimmy, all the guys Chris Miser, all the gut trainers. I said, "Listen, this is just a, kind of a tough situation, but I just want to say thanks. It was a pleasure knowing you guys and working with you. In fact, I work with Timmy Leroy now. Timmy's out in San Jose, which is great.
Oh,
But
he works for Mike Aldrich?
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know
He
that.
was
That's
our head
great.
guy at the Barracuda last year, and now he's going to work with Mikey
Oh,
with the
great.
big club. Yeah.
Awesome.
So anyway, I grabbed my gear, and the next day comes, I clear waivers. So I called Doug and I said, "So I guess I'm going to Syracuse, which is the farm team." He goes, "You're not going anywhere." He goes, "I can't have that kind of money in the minors. If you get hurt, I'm on the hook for it." He goes, "You just stay home for now." And so anyway, I'm just sitting there, I'm waiting. I said, "Can I have my agent reach out to some teams, see if we can make a trade?" He's like, "Sure." Now I had 4 years left on my contract, so it was kind of hard to make a deal
Hmm.
out of the lockout, and all that sort of stuff. So sure enough, my agent reached out to some teams, and he calls me again, and I said, "What's happening?" He goes, I just can't move your money." I said, "Well, what do you want me to do? I'm sitting here for 5 days doing nothing." He goes, "Well, I think I'm going to put you back on waivers."
The re-entry, right?
I no, they're just regular waivers to go.
Oh,
And I
okay.
said, "Well, okay, I can put me on waivers." And sure enough, Anaheim picked me up. And so anyway, I mean, obviously I was in Anaheim for 6 years as a player and then 11 years as management. So I got to know, Berkey and Bob Murray on a more of a professional level than a player level. And sure enough, like Berkey was the one that said, I don't want you to say no to us. I said, well, all right, I did, but I didn't know it was you guys. And but so they picked me up the second time, and Bill Daly called Anaheim right after the trade was made. And he says, do not pick Marchant up on waivers because we're going to have a grievance with the Players Association because you guys are circumventing his contract with his no
Oh,
trade. But so to make a long story short, that's why no move clauses came in for players because a no trade just means you can't be traded, but you can be picked up on waivers. A no move means you can't go anywhere unless you want to go somewhere.
I didn't know
So
that.
that's why that whole thing started. And but listen, at the end of the day, it's been 20 years and I'm still living in the same place,
Yeah, yeah, right.
Tustin, California. We love it there, and it couldn't have worked out better.
That's awesome. So you come in, the Ducks were not doing well. I remember vividly around the time we sent the young kids down to the minors, down to Portland, called them back up, and we went on a run. I'm pretty sure we started getting going, right? And you
Yeah,
talked about,
right after Thanksgiving, right before Christmas, we went on a big run and we started winning some hockey games. And don't forget, like Berkey and Murph, they moved a lot of guys out, right? They moved Peter Sikora, they
yes,
moved Sandis Ozolinsh, they
yes,
moved obviously Fedorov. They moved a bunch of guys out that they didn't want around, and then they brought in some guy. Like I said, they brought in myself, Francois, Tyler. They brought up Pears and Getzey. Chris Kunitz got called up at that time. Joffrey Lupul was up. Penner was up.
yeah.
So it's like all of a sudden we got all the different makeup of the team, and we just started to gel. We started to kind
Hmm.
of get things going. And I would say by after American Thanksgiving, all the way to the end of the season, we had to be one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in the NHL.
I would agree with that. And talk about like that was a big group of young guys. Was Kunitz up too?
Yeah.
Yeah. You talked about Eddie O and those guys with the Rangers. Like, you were really a good mentor or a guy that, these young kids could lean on for help like that. Would you say that's right? Because obviously you know, we had a tough coach then and he ran a tight ship, right? And so, which is good, which was awesome. That's what those guys needed. So how do you think you were able to help them along the way?
I think we all did. I mean,
Hmm.
you look back at that team, there was a lot of veteran guys that had been around the league, like you said, Robbie Niedermeyer and I think was Odie on the team at that time? Maybe Sean O'Donnell, was he there yet or no? Tamo was there,
Yeah,
Scotty,
yeah.
like we had
Andy
a bunch of
McDonald.
guys that were just, that help. It wasn't just one guy. It was like everybody kind of was trying to make because these young players were good. They
Yeah,
were good players, and it was. I really feel like, I mean, had we been able to get by Edmonton in the conference final, I really think we would have given Carolina a run for their money,
yeah.
um, just because of the team that we had and how we were built. We had great goaltending, great defense, good forwards, good special teams, everything. And like you said, we got hot at the right time and everything was rolling in the right direction. It's just that we came up against Dwayne Rollison and
Rolly,
yeah, a hot goal
hot goalie. He was
and
effective. And
and we lost in 5 games. But it was again, going back to my story about getting cut by Red Gendron, um, it fueled us,
yeah.
right? It was like we were ready for the next year when that training camp started because we had unfinished business, and it was like we had one piece to the puzzle that was missing,
Hmm.
and Chris
Yeah.
Pronger, Chris Pronger came in.
Well, yeah, he was part of that Edmonton team. And I got to work with Eric Stahl a little bit, and I had some healthy discussions about that debate as well. He's like, "Oh, no chance." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know. I think we would have given you guys a run, but anyways, but all fun, of course. But yeah, we lost to Edmonton, and that guy was a big factor in that. I think it was maybe one of 2 days I've seen Murph happy, like when we made that trade. Like, and I don't blame him because it was a big day. It was, we lost Loops and Ladislav Smid, but yeah, you kind of felt that shift in like, okay, we're all business now. And the '06 run was good, but we'll get into '07 a little bit. But I want to talk about training for a little bit because I remember probably that summer, like I'd give out my books at the end of the summer and you would like fax me your phases at the end. Do you remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably last time I used the fax machine, but you'd fax me your sheets and I'd be like, wow, this guy's pretty professional. And for me, it helped me because I was talking about those young guys, you remember what that was like? There was that we had to get these young guys on board. We had, all those guys, they had to be in the weight room at like 8 a.m. every day. And there were days I'm like, hey, just come in and okay, Dustin, lay on the mat for a little bit and we'll wait for Randy to come in and I'll let you know when he's coming. Like stuff like that. But it was part of it. So like just talk about your training and how serious you took it because you really did.
So I remember, again, going back to college was my first kind of introduction to off ice training because we never really, growing up, we never really did that. We never
Hmm.
really did like lifting and you kind of just played hockey. And my freshman year, I went into to Clarkson. I was about 5'7", 150 pounds. Okay.
Hmm.
And Greg Dreschel, who was an assistant coach, he works for Nashville as a scout. He said to me, listen, kid, he was about same size, same kind of player, like real fast. And as he played at Colgate, I believe. And he says, you got to get stronger. You're going to get eaten up. So he goes, I want you to meet me 3 days a week at 6 a.m. at the gym, and we're going to lift. And then you're going to go to class, and then you're going to come back and you're going to practice and you're going to lift with the team. And I was like, he goes, yeah, otherwise you're never going to survive. I was like, okay. So we did that for the first, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months of the season. And by the end of my freshman year, I think I put on about 15 pounds and I grew 2 inches. And that was like the introduction to me to off ice training. And it really
Hmm.
helped. So that was the start. And then when I went to the Olympic team, I got to work with Jack Blatherwick,
Yeah. Cardiac
Cardiac
Jack.
Jack. And I'll tell you, he took my training from with Greg and them from here to here. And
Hmm.
it was just one of those things where, and his was almost like a different way of training. It wasn't like, his wasn't like we were doing real heavy weight. We were doing low weight, but heavy reps,
Hmm.
and it was, we were getting, I could just feel it. We did a lot of off ice training. I did a lot of rollerblade training, believe it or
Hmm.
not. And that kind of carried me through Edmonton. Uh, Daryl Duke was our
Yeah.
strength and conditioning guy there, and
Boxing guy, right?
yeah, he was a
Yeah.
kickboxer, and so we just did different things, and obviously to Columbus, and then when we got to Anaheim, I remember the first time I met you, and we were just talking about training and stuff like that, and to be honest with you, I didn't do a lot of training during the season.
Hmm.
In Edmonton, when the game was over, there was very few guys. Some guys would go to the gym. Some guys would go to the couch, grab a
Yeah.
cold beer, and watch the highlights. And that's what you did. But when I first met you, you said to me, "Who's your trainer in the off season?" I said, "Me." To
Yeah.
be honest with you, I never had anybody. I never had a trainer. I always just did it on my own. But that's what kept me. And when I built my house in Buffalo, I put a really nice big gym in there so that I could do it on my own time. Sometimes
Hmm.
I wasn't a guy who liked to do it first thing in the morning because I always felt like I never got a good enough workout. I like to get my body moving a little bit, and then I would go down late morning or early afternoon and get it done. But that's why I would send those sheets to you because it kept me on target. Like
Hmm.
I forced me to do it so that because I was checking in with you to make sure you knew that I was doing everything I could.
Hmm.
So that when we got to training camp and the fitness testing was on, I knew that I was prepared.
Hmm.
I didn't want ever be a red flag with my off ice training because that would be the first thing the coaches would look at. That's the first I look at as a management guy. Like, did they do
Hmm.
the work? You did the work, perfect. Now let's see what they do on the ice. But
Hmm.
if you throw a red flag with your off ice training, now something's gonna right off the bat. There's gonna be something that's not right. And off ice training is so important nowadays. And the way that we trained with you was different too.
Hmm.
A lot of it was the thought process of training was changing.
Hmm.
There was a lot of explosive stuff, right? Stuff like that. Whereas when in the beginning it was, heavy bench, heavy squat, all that sort of stuff. So,
Hmm.
um, I really I enjoyed all that. Every different person that I work with had did things a little bit differently, but I liked it because it
Hmm.
kept things different and fresh for me. And I go across the street and I do my tempo 110s in the church parking lot behind my house, and
That's awesome.
my kids would come over on their bikes and they'd ride around with me, and
That's awesome. That's
yeah,
so
it
cool.
was good stuff.
No, that's really cool. Yeah, you're definitely a professional in that regard. So let's talk about, we always talk, me and you talk about the culture of the Ducks, and it was hard. It was obviously it paid off, but it was hard. It was a grind. But it was fun because we won a lot of games, and it was just winning, and there was, ebbs and flows. It's a long season. And so talk about, like, if you could touch on that culture that we had then a little bit.
Well, I think it started with a lot of it had to do with Randy and his
Hmm.
staff. I mean, he was a hard coach,
Hmm.
and it
What
was
was his nickname that I think you gave?
well, his original nickname was Kitty, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
didn't really know that. But the nickname we gave him was Patches. That's a whole nother story. That was a great. The best part is he didn't know what it meant.
No, no.
And but
It's funny. It's so
that was the
funny.
run we were on because we had beaten Chicago in the last game before Christmas break. Because I was flying home to Columbus where my family was, and I had presented him with the wrench and the white scarf, and his little laugh. And he didn't know what it meant. And then, like a couple flights later, he played it, he put it on the TVs, and he came back. He goes, "Ah, I get it. I understand now."
You remember that nickname morphed into like, I'd be talking to, say, like Sean O'Donnell. He'd be like, "Yeah,
The pat,
Patch is on me for sitting on the boards of practice or something." Like it morphed into Patch.
the patch, yeah, the patch. Oh man,
But
there's
do you
it's such
remember?
a
You know
good
what? One
time.
of the funniest things I remember. You probably remember this vividly too. Was when Randy fell asleep on the plane with his headphones on, and the plane landed. He's still sleeping. Everyone off the plane went onto the bus. And I might have been on the bus that night for some reason, but it was hysterical because it was Randy. No one really joked around with him in that regard, and that was like, "Hey, we got you, bud." Like, he got on the bus, and I could hear Prongs' big booming voice, like, "Hey," Do you
Yeah,
remember that? You remember?
yeah, yeah. I mean, he was deep down, I got to work with him a little bit
Yeah.
after I retired, and he has this persona with the players that he coaches, and then he has this other side with other people, and I you didn't really we would see it every once in a while.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember, we were playing game 7 against Calgary in Calgary, and this is in the 05-06 season, and we had this brilliant idea that we were
Oh
going to
yeah.
leave after games and get in at 4 o'clock in the morning,
Oh,
and
I
that was what we
remember.
took for
Yeah.
it. And Brian Burke had, oh, we've got studies. Like, no, these studies don't work. Come on. I guess we were exhausted. But anyway, the 4 game 7, he's like, we're not going to practice. We're going to go across the street to the pool hall and we're going to play some pool and just, kind of
Yeah.
hang. So we did. We walked across the street from the Sheridan. And sure enough, wasn't there an old Winnipeg Jets Edmonton Oilers game?
On
And
the TV.
on
Yeah.
the TV, and Randy was playing, and all of a sudden you see Yari Curry just go right around him and score, and everyone's giving him a hard time, and he's laughing, and then all of a sudden you see him in the power play as a big slap shot, and he scores. He's like, "Oh, you see that guy?" So I mean, he was a hockey player. He was one of the,
Yeah.
but he had this crusty, grumpy kind of a style to him that, you'd walk in, you'd see him on the bike, you'd say good morning, and be like, "What's so good about it?" It's
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it started with him, and then obviously the players had a lot to do with it. Like look at Scotty Niemeyer, Chris Pronger. Like, we had some amazing veteran players on the '07 team. Sean O'Donnell, Brad May, Rob
Mhm.
Niedermeyer. The list goes on and on about guys that were really good guys that have been in the league a long time but had never won except for Scotty. And he was the only
Hmm.
one.
Hmm.
And the biggest thing I think that with that team was Randy and his staff identified a player and said, this is your role. This
Hmm.
is what we see you playing on this team. If you like it, great. If you don't, we're going to get somebody else. Like
Hmm.
you turned Rob Niedermeyer into a checker, right?
Hmm.
He was on that line with Travis Moen and Sammy Paulson. They shut down everybody, right?
Everybody. Yeah.
So I think that that was one of the big keys for that team because everyone was slotted where they were supposed to, right? Andy McDonald maybe was a guy that would kill penalties prior to this. Well, he wasn't killing penalties on this team because there was other guys that were going to do it.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
that that was one of the biggest things that Randy brought to the table was that everyone had a role and they accepted it, and that's why we were so successful because of not looking there going, am I going to be on the power play tonight? Am I going on the power play? Am I going on the penalty kill? Am I getting on the first line? Am I on the third line? No, this is where everyone is, and this is where you play, and this is what you're required to do.
Yeah, I love that. And it's, list goes on, even like a Joe DePenta, Kent Huskins, who Clarkson guy, Rick Jackman, like, and Ryan Carter, who I still see around here, like they had formidable roles in part of the process. And the best thing Randy's wife, Corey, I remember she said, because some of the trainers were like not scared of him, but like, how he was. And
Yeah,
Corey said to me, he goes, "Don't worry, his bark is bigger than his bite." And yeah, like I ton of respect for Randy, and if he wasn't giving you shit, he didn't like it.
exactly.
Like so he loved Joe Trotta. I'll say that the video coach. He like I caught it a lot, but it was all worth it because we won. And so like one thing I remember about you is like you did the things that not everyone wants to do. And what do I mean by that? Not talking on the ice. I'm talking about off the ice. You organize the team parties. You kind of organize the little things. Like maybe sometimes you had to go talk to Randy on part of the team's behalf sometimes. And so like I want to get into like the t-shirts. It's a big deal to me. Um, Talk about the t-shirts, and I want to get into something after that.
So in the 06-07 season, I missed, I think, 24 games that
Hmm.
year. And that's the most amount of games I had ever missed, like all combined in my career. More, that
Hmm.
was 24 was more than I ever missed the entire rest of my career. I missed in one season. I was dealing with groin issues, abdominal, and I had all these MRIs and nothing was coming up. And I'm like, guys, I'm telling you, something's not right. And I remember I do all the rehab and I came back and I played a couple games. I was playing in LA and I was driving wide. I was actually driving wide on Aaron Miller, who's another guy from Buffalo, believe it or not.
Oh
And I
yeah.
took a backhand, and I swear it felt like someone took a knife and just slipped me all the way up through my everything. I just feel it. I got back to the bench. I said to Timmy Clark, I said, Clark, something's not right. I'm telling you right now. I went right to the locker room. I go, it's the same thing. Something's not right. So they got me another MRI, and I was out for dinner with my wife when the doc called. And he says, "Well, you were dealing with something. We just never saw it." He goes, "Now we see it. You have a hole in your abdominal wall."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Okay." He goes, "It requires surgery. You're not going to be able to rehab this." So I said, "Okay." So we reached out to a bunch of different doctors that did all these things, and the guy that we came up was Dr. Meyer in Philadelphia.
Hmm.
So I flew all the way to Philadelphia and I had the last appointment. I met with him at like 5 o'clock. I'm laying on the table and he's like, try and do a sit up. I couldn't do a sit up. I couldn't, there's no way. And he goes, okay, what are you doing tomorrow morning? I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, you need surgery.
Hmm.
Like, okay, he saw my MRI. So I said, okay, well, I guess I'm having surgery. So I had surgery the next morning. I had to stay overnight one night and then I flew from Philly to Columbus, and I joined the team because that was the last game of the season. I think was in Columbus, and I joined. I got on the team charter and flew back to California. When I got back to California, the doc told me, he goes, "Your season's over." I said, "No, it's not." He goes, "Well, this is like an 8 to 12 week rehab." I said, "Well, it's not over. We have a great team. I'm going to be back playing." They're like, "No, there's no way." I said, "Listen, I'm going to do whatever I got to do. So they're like, okay. So the day one, he says to me, he goes, all right, the doc, and I was doing everything with Dr. Meyer along with our docs and trainers. He goes, I want you to get on the treadmill and I want you to walk for 5 minutes at a real slow pace. Okay, fine. I did that. Next day, I want you to do it for 10. Do you have any pain? No. Okay. So I'm just like slowly
Hmm.
building up. And everyone kept telling me, they're like, Toddy, you're gonna get this big pop, right? And it's gonna be the scar tissue breaking. I was like, okay. Well, I never got a pop. And I just kept going. I kept moving. I kept getting every step I took, kept getting better and better and better. And sure enough, the playoffs are starting. And, I'm like, I don't know, I think I was like 2 or 3 weeks into my rehab, my 2 or 3 weeks, yeah, through 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And I was doing really well. And so I just kept pushing. The team goes on. We beat Minnesota in the first round.
Hmm.
I didn't play, but then in the second round against Vancouver, I started getting on the ice and getting ready to practice. But going back to the whole thing was, going back to what you said, I felt like I needed to make a contribution to the team.
Hmm.
Like I couldn't do anything off the or on the ice. I couldn't. I just was like, what am I gonna? And I was just sitting there one day, and I don't know how it came up, but I was like, maybe I'll just do a T-shirt for everybody. I'll put it in their stall right before game one. And Tamo was the guy that he's always said, you know what, guys, you got to play this game with passion.
Hmm.
Passion is if you can't have passion playing this game or passion for your family, or he goes, you're not worth it's not worth living. You got to live your life with passion. So I was like, oh, that's perfect. That'll be the
Hmm.
first word. I'll just do it in black T-shirt with white letters, and I'll just put passion. So sure enough, I put in all the stalls and all the trainers, everybody. And so just a black T-shirt with the name passion on it. Everybody's like, what is this for? I said, well, Tamo used to say, you gotta do things in life with passion.
Hmm.
So the guys wore them. I was shocked. I thought, some guys that wear their normal things, but like, no, I want to wear. So they wore that T-shirt. So we get past the first round. We go to Vancouver, and like, what's the next word gonna be? And I was like, I don't know. So I was sitting in the training room doing some rehab, and Sean O'Donnell was there, and um, he's like, have you thought of any words? I'm like, yeah, I said, I don't know. I said, just this time of year, I said, and he made a comment. It's time of year everybody's making sacrifice. Everyone's doing. I was like,
There you go.
so now it kept going, and then we came up with the third round. It was it Hart?
Harder destiny.
No, Destiny is the last one. I knew what
Okay.
the last one was going to be if we got there.
Okay.
Destiny is
I remember heart.
heart, sacrifice, and passion.
Okay. Yep.
So sacrifice, passion was the first one, sacrifice was the second one, heart was the third one, destiny was the fourth one. And so now we had these T-shirts in the finals that destiny is and all the way down, and everyone was wearing them.
Hmm.
And they actually ended up. They came to me and they're like, somebody had made a flag for Wild Wing, and they were waving it in the stands during the games.
Oh, that's
And they
awesome.
came to me for the next season before the season started, and they said we'd like to make these and sell them in the team store. And I said, listen, I don't care. That's fine with me. And well, you kind of started. I said that's fine with me, but I said I want some of the proceeds to go to charity. Like take whatever normal you would do. Say it's 5%, 10%, and they made a ton of money for the Ducks Foundation selling those T-shirts. But the real kicker for me was when we went up to the Henry and Susan's house for the ring ceremony,
Hmm.
going through the book, and how everything was listed, and then at the end it says on the inside are Todd Marchant's words, and they weren't my words; it was the team's words, but on the
Yeah.
inside is engraved, "Destiny is heart, sacrifice, and passion." And I was like,
That was so cool.
it was an amazing moment, and anytime you look inside, like I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just my way of just making a contribution to the team, and obviously, I was able to get back playing
Yeah.
against Vancouver, and then I got Detroit, sorry, Detroit, and then I got to play against Ottawa in the finals, and because Cooney got hurt against Detroit,
Yeah.
broke his hand in
Broke his hand.
game
Yeah.
one, and so then I ended up playing with Tamo and Andy Mack. Um, in a different role. So it was like,
Yeah.
things.
Well, talk like I remember that rehab because I want to say it was 4 weeks. Was it like
I
four
think I
weeks?
was I was over 5. It was just under 6 weeks. I was back playing hockey, And when I told Dr. Meyer that, he was like, "This is insane. I don't know
Yeah.
how you're doing this." I said, "Well, I just my body, I didn't allow it to build that scar tissue. I did everything you told me to do, Doc." I said,
Yeah. I remember you would text him on a daily basis and he
I
would
didn't
write.
go anywhere outside the lines. I just did what I was supposed to do, and
He got to a point he was writing back to you, keep pushing,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, I
it was
remember.
almost like I was a guinea pig
Yeah,
for the rest of
yeah,
his clients. And he was like, so now I think the protocols are a lot less than what they used to be
could
for
be.
somebody with a sports hernia, especially if it's in season. They can, you can push a little harder.
I just like I always wondered like you don't see that many of those anymore. And
No,
I wonder if it's because the mandate of like 4 days off a month. Um, coaches aren't practicing as much as what we did.
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
we
they're
need 8 days off.
yeah,
But
I'm well aware.
I think it's that. I think it's the training, you
Yeah.
know, going back to be honest with you, I think a lot of the problems for me was that when I first came from Columbus to Anaheim, the ice is a lot different.
Hmm.
The ice is a lot softer. It took me a while. I had to drop down to a 5/8
Hmm.
howl because I was just digging in I normally was a half inch. I was digging in too much. So now you're having to work harder. But I think the training is different. I mean,
Hmm.
we never did planks and all that sort of stuff way back. It was
Hmm.
like a sit up. That was what you were going to do for your abdominal work.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there's a lot more things that you're doing to in the training purpose that helps because now it's the injuries is the hips, right? Everyone has the hip injuries now.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Bob Murray believes it's all has to do with the skates.
Yeah, he still does, right?
He's a firm believer that they're so stiff that your body doesn't, it can't, this is not moving. This is just is still. So something has to give, and it comes from up in your lower body to your upper body. But
Yeah, could be right.
could
Could be right.
be.
Well, we could talk about that team all day and night, but I'm just very grateful that, you were a huge part of that team and I don't have that ring with those four words in it if it wasn't for you. So, but hey, I want to talk about you and Caroline, your wife. You guys have been big in the Anaheim community for so long. Not you mentioned the charities, but talk about like, Caroline is it's just she's awesome. She's a straight shooter and like when I meet people and I meet their wives, I'm like, it's like she's like a replica of Todd in a way, like she's very, but like talk about, not only your input with the Junior Ducks program, but also hers with the Lady Ducks. Like talk about that if you can. 'Cause I remember that just being like off the charts, her involvement with the Lady Ducks, and she's probably still doing it, knowing her, right? A little bit. So talk
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. So when we moved up to California, they had like two or three girls teams, the Lady
Hmm.
Ducks, and they were mixed teams of all different birth years. And we had two girls that played in Columbus, our two oldest that had played in the in-house program.
Hmm.
And Kathy McGarrigle,
Oh yeah, I remember Kathy.
she was the founder of her and Rick Hutchinson
Gotcha.
they were the ones that started the Lady Ducks program. And so we got our girls involved. And so they kind of got started in girls hockey. And my wife, for the longest time, was basically just a volunteer helping out with coaching or organizing activities or fundraisers or whatever needed to be done for the program. And she's now the general manager of the Lady Ducks program. So she kind of runs the show.
Wow.
She's the one that is helping. My oldest daughter Lily, is now the direct manager of coaches.
Wow.
And there's another former Lady Duck, Keely Moy. She's a director in the Lady Ducks program. So they're all kind of working together to continue to build this program. They've got 15 or 16 teams this year,
Wow.
all triple A, double A, single A, all the way from 6U all the way up to 19.
Wow.
It's a big program, and she loves it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours, but she's seen it from the ground to where it is today, and uh,
100%.
yeah, she's got a lot of great relationships with people all over the country. She knows just about every college coach, so she advocates for the players when they get to that age and talks to coaches and says, this is a player that's interested in your school or your program. Every year they're graduating, players to Division 1, Division
Hmm.
3. So it's a really it's a great program. Again, it's in Southern Cal, and hockey is popular, but it's always a fight, for girls hockey to get them to just play girls hockey. A lot of it's still want to play boys and all that sort of stuff, or you lose players to go to prep schools, but
Hmm.
they build a really good program. And my other daughter, who is back with living in California, she's an assistant coach on two of the teams
Wow.
before she ends up going to med school next year. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
kind of like a family affair. And I don't coach anymore.
No.
My youngest boy, Bradley, plays 16U. I coached him until he was 14, and then I kind of said, you know what, it's time for you to play for somebody else. I did that with my son Tim. He did the same thing, and my daughters did the same thing as well. I just said, you know what, you got to play for other coaches. You can't just play for dad. And it's a different voice, and maybe something will click that doesn't click for me or for you. But I say, because you're always going to have to play for somebody else at some point. So
Hmm.
might as well start now.
I remember like Scotty coached a lot with his boys, and Jeff Friesen was coaching, and it was pretty neat to see that, and how big that community's grown, and to see the junior Ducks have kids get drafted or go on to college. It's pretty neat. And Hutch was awesome with, starting the in-house program. And then he didn't like it when the kids went to the junior Ducks, because he wanted to keep them, and it's like,
Yeah.
and but he, at the same time, he's doing an unbelievable job of creating a fun environment for those kids to learn how to play the game, and he's still doing it.
Well,
So
hockey in Southern Cal, like with the Ducks winning and then the Kings winning twice,
yeah,
the amount of kids playing youth hockey in Southern California it's just exploded. It's
yeah,
unbelievable. There's just not enough ice. There
right.
really isn't. I mean, you can't just pick up an extra hour just because there's somebody on it all the time.
Hmm. Yeah,
With all the kids playing hockey now.
it's awesome. It's there. It's on the map, and it's going to keep building. And
Yeah.
so, well, Toddy, this has been unbelievable. Talk about real quick. Talk about your role with the Sharks, and you've been doing player development for a while. Like I see, I've come across a lot of players who've gone on to player development roles like yourself, or Andrew Cogliano is another perfect guy for that role with the Colorado Avalanche. There's other guys who I could see being like future player development guys. So talk about that, and what's that like, especially working for Greersy.
Yeah, so obviously I retired in 2011, and Bob Murray was the general manager at the time, and asked me if I wanted to stay in hockey. And I was always told, Kelly Buckberg told me, he's like, when you get ready to retire, if you want to stay in hockey, don't get out. Like, don't, because once they forget about you, it's hard to get back in. So I was like, Bob's like, I got a position. We never had anybody do it. So you kind of like would be a pioneer with our organization. I said, okay.
Hmm.
So I came back in August, and him and Rick Patterson basically said, this is what we expect of you. These are our players that we expect you to go watch and communicate to and talk to, and help them grow as players. And um, I loved it right from the beginning. And I think that there's a lot of ex-players will get into player development. They'll try it. It's not for everybody, because
Hmm.
you're traveling. When you're a player, you're used to traveling with a group, traveling with a team, trainers. You've got a group of people around. When you're in player development, you're traveling by yourself.
Hmm.
So a lot of players can't do that. So you see them after about a couple of years. If you see a player's like, then they go
Hmm.
into the coaching. A lot of guys will go into the coaching aspect, or they'll stay in player development. I've loved it. I don't mind traveling by myself. The biggest the biggest thing I get out of player development is seeing a player drafted, working with him, and wherever he plays in college, junior, Europe, seeing him go through the battles of growing as a player and as a person, hopefully seeing them sign a contract, working their way through the American League, and then fulfilling their childhood dream of playing in the National Hockey League. For me, that is the biggest reward, because I had just a small part of it. Obviously, his parents and his coaches have a bigger part than I do. But what I love is that when you go back to those players eventually start, become NHL players, and you walk into that dressing room. When I would walk into the Anaheim dressing room, I would see Hampus Lindholm, Josh
Hmm.
Manson, John Gibson, Ricky Raquel, and I could spend an hour in that room talking to the guys because they're like, hey, where have you been? Who have you
Hmm.
been seeing?
Yeah,
Because they
right.
remember you going to see them play in Saskatoon or in Linköping or in Kitchener, wherever it is, and you were there at 10:30 at night after a game, after a tough game, after a great game, just there to be and talk to that person,
Hmm.
that player after the game, because you're giving them real-time feedback. And because you can always, I may give different feedback than a coach would, because
Right,
a coach
right.
has to be the one, I'm the one that's saying, hey, I thought you did this really well, but this maybe you didn't do so well. So it's like, it's
Yep.
a little different way of, communicating with them, with those players. But so after I got let go by Anaheim, Mike got the job in San Jose, and it was like a perfect transition for me that I got to go work with Mike.
Hmm.
And it's taken us a few years to get to where we draft a player, we develop a player, we get him in the American League, and we see him in the NHL. And we're seeing it. We saw it last year a little bit, and we're going to see it even more this year. And
Hmm.
that's for me is just that's the icing on the cake to see that look on that player's face when he's playing in the National Hockey League. And now I look at there's players that I started working with that are retiring, which is crazy to think that now all of a sudden you've been doing it this long. That these players, I see guys, obviously they have families and get married, and you
Yeah.
know, it's just I really like it. It's been a passion of mine, and if you do it the right way, you're gonna get some. If you draft well and you develop well, you're gonna get some good players,
Oh yeah.
and that's the most important thing for me.
Yeah, the Sharks are on the rise, especially with Macklin and Will Smith and the other guys that get drafted last summer. Yeah, you guys are gonna be there for a long time. I know it, so it's great. Well, this has been awesome, Todd. This has been a lot of fun. I think our listeners will get a lot out of this. So I really appreciate you coming on, pal.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's always good to go down memory lane.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, thanks again, Todd, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
I'll see you at a rink somewhere.
All right. Thanks, Todd. Take
Thanks,
care,
man.
man. Bye.